Congressman Nail said the majority of rioters who stormed the Capitol were not armed and didn't hurt anyone. He says the ones who did should go to prison. And we know who was in the crowd on that day, and we know why they were there. And the question remains, why is it taking so long to prosecute those responsible? Charles Lowe, BNC host of Prime, tweeted this: "There is such an incredible American optimism that somehow things will work out and be okay, that it blinds us to the fact that we are at the precipice." And this week, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland reassured American citizens that he's committed to accountability.
As long as it takes, and whatever it takes, for justice to be done consistent with the facts and the law. We will protect the cornerstone of our democracy, the right to every eligible citizen to cast a vote that counts.
Joining us now is our colleague Charles Lowe, host of BNC's Prime. Charles, thanks for joining. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, said he's following the facts and the law and building his case. Is prosecuting Donald Trump necessary to restoring faith and the function of our democracy?
I think Merrick Garland's comments were confusing because he's not building a case. There is no indication whatsoever that so far the Justice Department itself has opened an investigation into what happened on January 6th. The House has referred some criminal cases, what they think would be criminal cases, to the DOJ, and those were about people who did not, violated or did not respond to subpoenas. But we haven't heard of anyone getting a subpoena from an investigation by the DOJ. The DOJ can and should investigate on its own. And in fact, they have more investigative skill and firepower than Congress does. So I was very kind of confused by Merrick Garland. What are you talking about? You're going to follow the facts. Are you trying to find the facts? Have you opened an investigation of your own and not leaning on Congress to find those facts?
Very good point, Charles. And you wrote an article about white extinction anxiety, in which it talks about how white men react to progress and change out of fear for loss of their power and position. We saw that happen during the Reconstruction era as well, which led to Jim Crow and a lot of violence inflicted upon people of color. Did the insurrection shrink or deepen that fear?
I think it was an expression of it, but I would also say that it's not just white men, but it is white people who subscribe to the idea, the notion of white supremacy. Where we see the attack on critical race theory, which is not really a thing that they're really attacking, but what that is a pitch to white women. These are the white women that they were losing in the suburbs. That's a pitch to them, and it's working. So it's not just that the violent part of it and the people that you see were mostly men, but the one woman who was killed, the one person who was killed that was a person who was breaking into the Capitol was a woman. So I don't want to just say it's the men. It is any person who subscribes to white supremacy.
Charles, knowing that that's what exists right now, can we trust any of our current institutions to actually solve for a problem that they've been a part of?
It's a very difficult question, because until someone is held accountable, the only disincentive to not perpetuate this lie or to actually not do this again would be punishment. The people who literally broke into the Capitol, we have them on camera, they're getting lesser sentences than the prosecutors are asking for, right? But those are the only people who are being prosecuted at all. There are sitting members of Congress who may have some contribution to this. There are parts of people in the Trump administration and possibly Donald Trump himself who is culpable for this. If none of those people are held accountable, then what prevents you? What is the disincentive from doing this again.
Charles, don't ask me why I know this, but the Capitol rioters who did get sentenced received less of a sentence than somebody just a few blocks down who sold an ounce of crack cocaine. So that's where we're at with accountability. Charles Lowe, host of BNC's Prime, thank you for joining us. And you can watch Prime with Charles Lowe weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern right here on BNC.